It's time for the Sportsnaut Interview. Newsmakers and record breakers from around the world of sports. Join us in conversation. The latest in sports talk from the editors at Sportsnaut.com. And now, the Sportsnaut Interview.
Welcome back to the Sportsnaut Interview. I am your host, Evan Grote, and this week our topic is college basketball. We are about a month away now from Selection Sunday when the field of 68 will be decided, but still lots of basketball to be played between now and then. We are joined by our guest this week, college basketball insider Adam Zagoria. You can go out there and follow him on X at Adam Zagoria. I encourage you to do that. He's one of my favorite college basketball follows. And Adam, I know you've been a little under the weather, so I appreciate you toughing this one out and joining us here for a few minutes.
Yeah, thanks, Evan. I'm ready for the snow to melt and the sun to come back out here in New York. It's been a pretty brutal few weeks here.
I hear you. I'm out here in Western New York, and we've had a brutal winter ourselves, minus 11 on Monday when I got up in the morning. So I'm also ready for a little bit of sun and to warm things up. But let's get back to college basketball here. There's been a lot of great games this year. There's a lot of great teams out there. But the big storyline this season has been the talented freshman class. We keep hearing about this superstar group of freshmen. I think 5 or 6 of them could be the top picks in this year's NBA draft. Now, I know you've covered the game for quite a while. Have you ever seen, in all of your years of covering college basketball, have you ever seen a freshman class that's this talented?
I mean, it's a very deep class, Evan. I think probably 8 of the top, maybe the top 8 picks in the NBA draft and something like 11 of the top 12 or, something like that are going to be college freshmen. So it's a very deep class. Obviously, you got the big 3, Darryn Peterson from Kansas, Cam Boozer from Duke, and AJ Debansa from BYU, kind of in a tier at the top. And then guys like Caleb Wilson at North Carolina and Kingston Flemings at Houston, Nate Ament at Tennessee. Really deep class. And it's going to be sort of the, whoever has that number 1 pick, what they're looking for in a positional need as to who goes number 1.
Yeah, definitely. And we see a lot of teams in the NBA, they've got a little tanking problem going on this year with some of those teams trying to position themselves to better their chances of landing one of those big 3. Now, we all know how much college athletics has changed over the years with NIL and the transfer portal. I think back years ago, it was all about landing that top freshman. I think back to the Kentucky teams with Calipari. But now in the years of transfer portal and NIL, teams have kind of changed that philosophy just a little bit of how they go about building their roster. We're seeing teams try to get some more veteran players on their teams. But based on what we're seeing this year with those outstanding freshmen, does it serve as a reminder that if you can land yourself a high impact freshman out of high school, how it can be such a huge difference maker for your team?
Yeah, I mean, I think traditionally, here in the last, say, 5 or 10 years, the ideal blend is experienced older players, many of whom now you get through the portal, plus, maybe 1 or 2 elite freshmen. Now, last year, Duke obviously appeared to have that perfect mix. They had Cooper Flagg, they had Con Knipple, and they had some older players. They looked like they were going to win the whole thing. They got to the Final Four, blew a late lead to Houston. And then you got a team like, say, UConn this year has Braylon Mullins, a projected lottery pick, and he's, and some other freshmen, but a lot of older players around them. Now, not every school can afford or is recruiting 5-star guys like Cooper Flagg and Braylon Mullins. I mean, I think Kansas State, which has had some real problems this year, they don't even recruit high school players anymore. Rick Pitino at St. John's has a freshman on his roster, but he's said at various times he's not really going to recruit high school players anymore because, if you're a coach and you can get a grown man who's 23 years old out of the portal or a former European pro, they're going to be physically more experienced and physically stronger than a high school kid. I mean, there's a lot of worlds overlapping now. You had Mick Cronin, the the UCLA coach joking yesterday that he wants to get the, somebody who, drinks vodka and wrestles bears from Lithuania
Yeah.
on his team. So,
Yeah.
only some schools I think are really going in on high school players anymore, and that's hurt high school recruiting.
Right. Yeah, I did hear Mick Cronin's comments the other day. I thought that was pretty funny. One of the freshmen that I want to discuss a little bit more in depth is Darryn Peterson. Excellent, tremendous scorer, as you know, but the problem with him is he's just not available enough. And, he's missed games with cramping, with hamstring injuries. The latest one was flu-like symptoms. Are you at all concerned that, or would you be concerned if you were on that Kansas coaching staff or a Kansas fan, that this could linger on into the NCAA tournament? Could he miss games?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, right? On the one hand, we've got Lindsey Vonn who's out there skiing in the Olympics with a torn ACL. And on the other hand, you've got Darryn Peterson who's pulling out of games with flu-like symptoms. Obviously Lindsey Vonn, that didn't end too well. She broke her leg, but you get my point.
Yeah.
Darryn Peterson is so talented that I think he's made Kansas into a potential Final Four team. Mm-hmm. People are believing in them as a team that could get to a Final Four because when he is on the court, he's so talented. He plays the game at his own speed. He's capable of taking over. He's the best player on the court. Yeah. They can beat anybody. And in fact, they beat Arizona, the number one team in the country, without him the other night, which suggests that their other players are learning how to play well even when he's not there. That said, it does raise questions. These are sort of soft tissue issues that he's had and flu-like symptoms. I saw Bruce Pearl, the former Auburn coach, questioned his toughness the other night on TV and said, if I'm an NBA coach, maybe I'm a little uncertain about this guy's toughness. And it has raised some questions about whether it'll impact his draft stock and he won't be the number one pick. I think Jalen Rose said he thinks it will hurt his draft stock, but most NBA people you talk to think he's going to be number one or number two. Now, obviously, if he goes missing in the, first round of the NCAA tournament, they could probably win. But if it happens in the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight, something happens, then it could really, be a detriment to Kansas.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to question the toughness. And if you look at a couple of the games that he's missed games against Arizona. He's missed games against Duke.
He missed the second half against BYU and AJ Debansa. Yeah.
Right. As a competitor, you would think he'd want to go out there and try to go head to head with some of these other top freshmen in the country. So it's very mind boggling to see what's going on.
None of the other freshmen, Evan, the top freshmen, Debansa and Boozer, have missed, a single game, I don't think.
Right. And Debansa has really starting to supplant himself as maybe the number one pick with the tear he's been on lately, scoring all kinds of points, playing really well, although his team has struggled, but he's playing well. I do want to move on to another topic. Unfortunately, it's a topic that, it's not good for the game of college basketball, in my opinion. It's the topic of G League players, former draft picks who played in Summer League, NBA Summer League, wanting to come back to get college eligibility. We saw James Najee with Baylor. Chris Bediako was recently just denied eligibility with Alabama. I'm seeing Amari Bailey, who played 10 NBA games, former UCLA player, is trying to get eligibility come back. Now, I'm a huge fan of college basketball. I would love to see some common sense rules put in place to try to stop this thing from happening. And I know that, these guys that are coming back aren't necessarily making huge impacts for their teams, but still, I just think it's crazy to have a guy who was drafted come back to college. Just want to get your take on that.
Yeah. I'm sort of old school, I guess. And I think if you made the decision to leave college and you're going to go pro and forfeit your eligibility, you shouldn't get a do-over and be able to come back to college.
Yeah.
That said, the NCAA has put in these rules that if you're within your 5-year window of your high school graduating class and you haven't signed an NBA contract and haven't played in NBA games, then you can come back. I've talked to a variety of people. Like on the one hand, you've got Jay Billis, who of course advocates for complete, player freedom and the ability to make money, and he's okay with it. And then I couldn't get Tom Izzo off the phone one day for 25 minutes because he just said it's, the end of the world, and he's going to go back out and try to get Miles Bridges and Magic Johnson back playing for Michigan State. So it is a little crazy. The Bediako thing only lasted 5 games before a judge canceled the injunction. You still got James Nagy, who played in the, was drafted, played in the G League. Amari Bailey, like you said, played 10 games and is trying to come back. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's hard to know where the line is. I mean, there are all kinds of European pros who have signed with schools at the semester break, coming to the U.S. colleges. So really, what's the difference between a European pro and an American pro? I understand the arguments, but it is it's such a sea change from the college game we all grew up with that it's hard for a lot of people to process.
Yeah. You mentioned Izzo and Calipari, two of the biggest critics, I think, of what's been going on. And I agree with them, like I said. Let's get back to some things going on the court, some better topics. Last year, the SEC was the dominant conference in college basketball. We saw 14 of their 16 teams get into the tournament, which was a record. This year, the 2 dominant conferences are the Big Ten and the Big 12. I think we could see up to 8 teams from each conference get into the tournament this year. We'll see how the last month of the season plays out. But in your opinion right now, who's the most dominant conference in college basketball?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the Big 12, the top of the Big 12 has, 4 or 5 teams that can make the Final Four. I mean, obviously Arizona is number 1 and was undefeated till they lost. Houston is always going to be right there. They've won 5 in a row. Kansas has now won 8 in a row and looks like on any given night they could beat anybody. Iowa State, Texas Tech, very balanced, deep, dangerous teams out of the Big 12. And, of course, BYU has AJ Debansa. So I would pick the Big 12. But, the Big 10, obviously, Michigan, Illinois, Michigan State, Nebraska, Purdue, all potential Final Four teams. And in kind of the big picture here, Evan, the Big Ten has not won a national championship since Bill Clinton was in the White House in 2000 when it was Michigan State.
Yeah.
It's more than a quarter century ago now.
Mm-hmm.
And the former Pac-12 and the Pac-12 schools haven't won a title since 1997 when Bill Clinton was also in the White House. And now you've got Arizona, a former Pac-12 team, and Michigan, and I guess Illinois from the Big Ten, who, are teams that could win it all. So there's a little bit of history on the line and pride for those conferences. I know you didn't ask me about the Big East. Since I do cover the Big East, I'm just going to mention that, certainly in UConn and potentially St. John's, that's a real top-heavy league. They're probably going to get 3 teams in the tournament. But that's at least 1, maybe 2 teams that can go deep in the tournament. Obviously, Connecticut's won 2 of the last 3 championships. On any given night, they could beat anybody. They've only lost to Arizona and St. John's, and the Arizona loss, they were missing some guys. And St. John's has won 10 in a row now and really seems to have found their groove under Rick Pitino.
Yeah, absolutely. Rick Pitino always gets his teams to play better towards the second half of the season. No different this year with the Johnnies. And we'll wrap it up we got to talk a little mid-major, got to show the mid-majors some love as well. I want to ask you about Miami of Ohio, who is currently undefeated, the last undefeated team in the country. I actually had a chance to see them live when they played at UB. They're here in my backyard, so I got a chance to go check them out in person. And then St. Louis, who's currently has 1 loss. Now, it's always tricky with the mid-majors. Getting to the tournament is the easiest way is to win your tournament, but they've had such great seasons, these 2 teams. If they should have a hiccup and lose a game here, and do you think it's possible they could still get into the tournament?
I think so. St. Louis is, I believe, 16 in the net as I look at it, and Miami, Ohio is 50 in the net. Mm-hmm. So, they're both they're pretty high up. I mean, obviously St. Louis is, I think, 22-1 and 11-0 in the league. But it's traditionally a one bid league, the A10, and you've got other teams there that could win that. So I think both teams deserve serious consideration, even if they don't win their tournaments.
All right, we'll see how it all shakes out. We got about a month left till Selection Sunday. As I said, Adam Zagoria, go out there and give him a follow on X at Adam Zagoria. Adam, we always appreciate your time and all your insight. Thank you so much today.
Thanks, Evan. Appreciate you, buddy.